With the hype train finally rolling for a Mega Man Dual Override, which will release next year, and the Blue Bomber being back in the spotlight for the first time in years. Yeah, we got Mega Man 11 back in 2018, but that was 8 whole freaking years ago. And if you're a total newcomer just staring at all these Mega Man collections on Switch Online or Steam, you're probably wondering, why are they all the same name? Why are the characters different? Do they even belong in the same series? What are the gameplay like? Well, those are all great questions, and I'm here to tell you each Mega Man series has its own gameplay, own tone, and own storyline, and they're all divided into two storylines. Don't worry, they're way simpler than the Zelda timelines. You got the robotic timeline, and then you got the internet timeline. I'm happy to go through every one of these series, give you my opinion, and tell you if they're worth starting. Let's get going. So, the latest one that was announced, Dual Override, goes into the original series timeline, and it's the most well known Mega Man. The story of this is pretty simple, almost Saturday morning cartoon simple. Pretty much what happens is Dr. Light manages to create humanoid robots to help humanity. He creates 8 robots, 2 of them are rock and roll. He keeps them to himself as basic lab assistants and household robots. The other one he uses for bigger jobs and are much more powerful. His assistant, Dr. Wily, turns on him and reprograms the other 6 robots to take over the world, leaving Dr. Light with just rock and roll. Rock, wanting to stop Wily, volunteers to get turned into the super fighting robot Mega Man, and that's basically each game for the most part. Episodic, you can say 7 does continue the story right after 6 is ending, but for the most part, it's a kid's cartoon show. Dr. Wily or some other person that ends up being manipulated by Dr. Wily, or is Dr. Wily in disguise. Come on, Mr. X, you're not fooling anyone. Creates 8 robot masters that Mega Man has to take down. Gameplay for each robot master is based on a stage theme, with platforming and the like. And when you beat the enemies, you get their power and you can use it on other robot masters. Beyond that, it's for the most part pretty basic low frills. There are some secrets to find depending on the game, and as the series continues, Mega Man gets new powers like slides and other friends to help him, like Rush the Dog, Proto Man, and his sometimes frenemy Bass to help him beat Dr. Wily, who keeps coming back like a bad case of the herpes. Out of all the Mega Man series, the original one is the most basic and easiest to understand and get into. There's not an outright awful game in the lot, even if 5, 7, and 8 do have parts that do make them weaker than the others. They're fun games, and if you want to try them and have Switch Online, the Game Boy games aren't bad. But wish list the Legacy Collection when it goes on sale for $5 at least twice a month, I've noticed, and they're definitely worth trying if this is where you want to pick up. However, it's not my most recommended entry point. My most recommended entryway possesses great risks as well as great possibilities. A lot of casual or new players to Mega Man can get confused between Mega Man and Mega Man X, and can you blame them? The two look very similar. But X has a more complicated design, and that fits because, well, everything in X is a bit bigger and a bit darker, even though out of all the spin offs, it changes the least from the original series. Anyways, story wise, taking place even further in the future, we found out that before Dr. Light died, he built one more robot. This one was meant to be completely autonomous and have 100% free will. Dr. Light, however, was scared of his new creation. If it ever went out of control, it could be the end of humanity as we knew it. So, Light decided to seal X in a capsule instead. X awakens 100 years later. The human finds him, makes the mistake of cloning X into a new series of robots called Reploids, and these Reploids do malfunction. So, to keep these malfunctioning Reploids in line and keep them from hurting people, a robot police force called the Maverick Hunters are created, headed by a robot named Sigma who can't go Maverick. Yeah, you can see where this is going. Sigma, of course, malfunction in goes Maverick, and the only robot that's powerful enough to stop him is, of course, the pacifistic Mega Man X. And his new friend Zero, that also showed up at about the same time Sigma malfunctioned. Wonder if there's a connection. Nah. After all, correlation doesn't equal causation, now does it? Anyways, while the story of X does build to something, especially the first five, there is a lot of the original Mega Man DNA. Regardless of the villain or the situation, it's always Sigma coming back, and like herpes, he's actually a virus this time around. Gameplay wise, again, it shares a lot in common with the original Mega Man series, but there are quite a few differences too. Sure, each Maverick Reploid X's hunting has a stage theme. You're still stealing weapons and using them to fight other bosses, but that's kind of where it ends. First off, X starts out each game as a weakling, and you have to find other things outside of Robot Master weapons to power them up. Heart tanks, armor, and sub tanks have to be done by exploring the stages. Throw in things like wall jumping, and in later games, you also have Zero joining Mega Man X as a playable character, and he carries a sword into battle instead of a blaster, changing up the gameplay. But a lot of it's the same pattern. 8 Maverick bosses instead of robot masters, but nonetheless, win and take their power and use each one to repeat until you get the final stage and take down Sigma. Quality wise, when it comes to the X series, I'm going to put it like this. You put together people's lists of the top Mega Man games ever made, and I can guarantee a lot of the X series will be on their top spots. You put a list of all the worst Mega Man games, and I can guarantee you the X series will take a lot of the top spots on that list too. Mixed bag, thy name is Mega Man X, and this is on top of the series going on 3 games longer than it should have. And yes, X8 is a hidden gem, but that doesn't change that fact. Because X6 and a certain other game that doesn't exist art, and that does cause trouble for the Zero series, which tries to continue the story. Generally, I put it this way: if you see Mega Man X Legacy Collection 1 in a bundle or on sale, pick it up immediately. If you like classic 2D games, because 3 out of 4 of those games on those collections are absolute ghosts. And when it comes to X3, there are worse games to play. Legacy Collection 2, only if you want one truly great game that is also, unfortunately, the worst selling game in its entire franchise, and learn why it doesn't deserve that title with Mega Man X8, and X5 is okay. It's just certainly worse games to play in that series, but you're not missing anything other than frustration and a headache if you try to skip X6 in a game that shall not be named. I'm going to combine these into one since the collection contains both games. Mega Man Zero was released on the Game Boy Advance in the early 2000s, and Zero was a breath of fresh air for the Mega Man games. As you can see, the character does look a bit different, no longer a blue super fighting robot. You take a role as a red robot that looks like it's worn down because of time, basically taking place 100 years after Mega Man X. And like I said, it was supposed to be after X5, but because Capcom did not like the darker story with Mega Man X being the antagonist, despite the X series setting him up as the antagonist of the Zero series.
What what if I become one of the Mavericks?
Don't ask such a silly question. I'm breaking contact now.
Wait, Zero! I'm serious. Zero, if I become a Maverick, you have to take care of me.
Don't be ridiculous. Now hurry on back.
Promise me. Zero.
And another war we just hear about but never really experienced, called the Elf War, as to why the world is in ruin, and not the fact that Sigma dropped a space colony on the Earth being the reason why the world is in a state of constant decay and near ruin. Anyways, Zero wakes up after being asleep for 100 years by a resistance group who are trying to keep the Rest Blade race from being exterminated from Neo Arcadia, the last bastion that humans can live in. And the man who's responsible for the genocide is none other than Mega Man X, or at least what turns out to be a copy of him. And now it's up to Zero to stop him. And unlike X in the original, each game has its own arc, its own story, and its own villain, and it ends up building to a pretty good conclusion. Yes, you defeat the copy of X in the first one, and he doesn't come back in the sequel. He does show up as a boss in Zero 3, but it's a red herring, and you beat him only at the game's halfway point. Gameplay wise, while it's still an action platforming game with shooting, wall jumps, and using the Z Saber that Zero had in the X series, the Zero series changes things up a bit. No longer do you merely pick a stage and get robot weaknesses. Rather, beating stages are sometimes optional to do, and what you get is oftentimes either an elemental power up with the boss weakness. For example, lightning, I do believe, is strong against fire but weak against ice, so you do literally have a rock, paper, scissors this time. But there's other things that you can get, like the Cyber Elves, that if you power up, you can use their abilities to do things like spikes no longer cause instant KO, or you can fall into a pit a time or two without dying. If this makes it sound like the Zero series is super easy, yeah, how do I break it to you? It's not. These games are probably the hardest of any series. So much, Capcom had to add a few extra modes in the collection for those of us who do like a good challenge, but just maybe not having our asses handed to us all the time. And the Zero series is fun. The ZX series carries on from the Zero series a few centuries later, and thanks to Zero and the Resistance, the world has managed to solve the world's resource problem. Humanity is no longer cooped up in one city, and the world is regrowing. And X and Zero are now talking rocks that give certain humans the ability to transform into them and protect the world from other nasty evildoers. The ZX series takes the power from the other series and has you transform into character armors, and the world is a lot more open, rather than just a stage select. I haven't played ZX in a long time, and I've never played Advent Children, but I can say since it's on the same collection, it's worth getting into. Overall, I don't really recommend the Zero series at your entry point in the Mega Man games. Why? Because they're freaking hard, and it does want you to have familiarity with the world you got from the X or original games. Is it worth playing? Yes. But I would highly recommend either starting with the original Mega Man series or the Mega Man X series if you're interested in getting into the Mega Man games that follow the classic 2D platform shoot 'em up. Anyways, let's talk about Mega Man Legends. With Star Force coming out, Legends is the only series not to receive any updates, but I have a feeling it will be released eventually. But if you do talk about this to any serious Mega Man fans about their thoughts on this series, expect a lot of frustration and tears, a whole lot of tears and rants about the moon. And I do apologize, but my PlayStation's not working, so I'm going to have to go off really old footage from my reviews back in the day. Story wise, this one's probably got the darker and most grown up feeling of any of the Mega Man series. Oh no, don't let this almost Saturday morning anime aesthetic fool you. Yeah, you got a plucky treasure hunting hero in Mega Man Volnut, his adopted sister Roll in tow, as they try to take on the Team Rocket S Bond family. But the end of both Legends titles takes some seriously dark and twisted turns in their story. The first game has you defending and exploring one island, trying to restore your flying ship, the Flutter, and stop the Bond family from causing trouble. But later in the game, you find out that the ruins Mega Man has been exploring is actually connected to some lost technology and an AI that is threatening to wipe out all life on the island, and it seems Mega Man is a lost part of that system. The second game continues it as he meets some strange aliens that want him to do some of their dirty work by promising him the Mother Lode, a source of infinite energy. It's a trap, and it winds up with Mega Man getting stuck on the moon, but not until we get a pretty messed up plot twist about the true state of the world and the origin of the people Mega Man has been defending, and that another Uber AI system's about to wake up and cause a lot of problems. After a 10-year delay, a Mega Man Legends 3 was announced for the 3DS as a launch title. and then canceled about a week before the demo was supposed to be released. That's where the tear and anger comes from. As far as gameplay, this is probably the least popular Mega Man series for a reason. It doesn't feel like Mega Man, no 2D platforming, no stage select. The first one feels like an urban sandbox game that has Mega Man in it doing side missions for the citizens of Cadillacs Island, as well as diving into Metroid-esque dungeons, but it does have some features ahead of its time, like a dark and light system depending on what missions you completed, and a 3D lock-on system, not bad for a game that came out in 1996. Mega Man Legends 2 wasn't as inventive, but as it's more similar to Legend of Zelda in its exploration, but it's still a fun and unique experiencing. Hoping Capcom will eventually port this, plus the misadventures of Tron Bonne, a fun side story that focuses on the Bond family and their misadventures. Do I recommend them, especially to new players? Well, the only reason I would be hesitant to recommend these games is because, well, they're freaking expensive. They're not Tales of PS1 titles, rare and expensive, but they do rank up there, so I expect to play around $100 or more for a used copy. Come on, Capcom, release this as a collection already, and then test if there's a demand for it, even though it's been almost 3 decades. Although I would argue that there are multiple Mega Man timelines and shifts from the end of X5 to explain Legend's dark backstory, as X does mention wanting to build Elysium to protect the few human that survived the space colony crash, if you get the bad ending. For the most part, fan agrees there are two timelines and Legends is the end of the main timeline. Anyways, time to go take a look at that alternate net timeline. Jack in Mega Man, power up. There were 6 total of these games, not counting different versions of them on the Game Boy Advance. The idea is they took all the robot masters from the original game, recreated them as network AIs, and gave them drastic redesigns. The story follows 10-year-old Landakari and his net nabby Mega Man as they battle the likes of Dr. Wily's terrorist organization World 3. Like Legends, it does have a Saturday morning anime vibe to it, and with the exception of a few twists like Mega Man's connection to Land's late brother Hub, it for the most part stays in the normal kid friendly aspect. Again, the game's more adventure and RPG. You control land and solve puzzles in the real world, but whenever a malfunction computer stops you, jack in Mega Man and have them battle. The battles are random and take place on these grids, and you have to build a deck of battle chips to feed Mega Man to have him do special attacks because his blaster is kind of useless. And winning battles will give you money or another battle chip to add to the deck or trade. They're a fun little game with a few issues like having all 6 kind of be similar, 4 being kind of well on the weak side, and plenty of times where bad deck draws can get Mega Man deleted, and even if the collection at Game Over sends you back to the last save, so please save often. Do I recommend this series, especially to noobs? Yeah, it's not like the older version of Mega Man, but if you're looking for an old school JRPG more than a platformer, you could do worse. Outside of making sure you save these games, they are a lot of fun. If you are only able to get one of the collections since Capcom broke them into 2, if you're looking for Saturday morning anime story, go for the first collection. Looking for better gameplay, go with the second collection. Yeah, being on the DS, the fact I've only played one of these games, I guess I have to deal with the footage for the trailer of the new collection coming out. And well, what can I say? This one basically tries to be to the Battle Network series what X was to the original Mega Man series. A bigger, more darker version, and I'm sorry I only played one of the games, but I think I failed for a reason. What I played just really not that good. I'm interested in that collection, don't get me wrong, to see if my opinions changed. But where X upped the action, the exploration of stages, the ability in a darker story, Star Force seems to go backwards, with the story being even more kid friendly as you play as Geostellar, whose father has been abducted by aliens, and Geo meets one called Omegasus. It seems that Omega's alien race can bond to humans who are having some psychological problems, give them power, but also corrupt them, and Omegasus would like to draft Geo into his personal ward to stop them. Yeah, it's not bad, but it does lack any creative edge from the Battle Network series. And yeah, if you can't tell from the screenshot, the board in Star Force may be 3D, but you actually have a smaller board and less battleships to make your strategy. With the streamed down gameplay and the fact that the story that I played wasn't that good, I managed to only play one game back in the day in the DS, and I never felt any obligations to play another one. And until this collection's released, trying to get a used DS copy was very expensive. So I recommend this series. While I am looking forward to retrying these games, I do have this to say. If you like the Battle Networks game, this isn't the worst game series, but if you're looking to get into Mega Man, I think you're better off with either the original Battle Network series if you're trying to get a JRPG, or the Mega Man X series more than you are the Star Force series. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Please leave a comment down below. What's your favorite Mega Man series? Do you have any other questions or concerns? Please leave them down below. You guys have a wonderful day.